everybody. Reno, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Portland, Oregon, North Carolina. Hello, hello. Arvada, Colorado, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, St. Louis. And if I didn't call out your town or city, forgive me, but it is time to begin the wonderful Restoring Your Thyroid webinar from Dr. Carolyn Dean. And for those of you who are joining us this afternoon, let me just begin with the professional technical introduction of Dr. Carolyn Dean as the author of The Magnesium Miracle, over 50 publications, 100 Kindle books. She is a doctor, she's a naturopath, and she's a researcher, and she is also the CEO of New Capstone Incorporated. As if she doesn't have enough to do, she does run a very large, successful international corporation. And we're so happy to have her with us today because she is a leader in the field of natural health, having been studying, teaching, knowing, sharing, and developing options, opportunities, protocols, and resources for individuals around the world and families for over 50 years. And we're so grateful that she cares still. I mean, compassion in the medical industry these days is challenging, but Dr. Dean is here to speak with every single one of you. I do want to let everybody know this is not a medical advice show. We can't do medical advice, talk about that, but what we do talk about is the structure and function of health. And also we talk about how to work with your body. Thanks everybody for piling in. As I mentioned, Dr. Dean is one of the most unique people when it comes to natural medicine. She has a view that a lot of people do not have, and because of that expertise and wisdom and also her success in helping people recover the natural use of their thyroid, I hear her. Hello, Dr. Dean. Dr. Dean?
Yes, Dr. Ginny, thank you for taking over the helm. We got 7 more minutes of people. That's what we did there.
Yes, very good. All right, so without further ado, I'll remind everybody, if you are registered for this webinar, which you did, then you will get a slide deck and a copy of this presentation video in your email tomorrow morning. For now, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy Dr. Dean's presentation. We do have customer service staff manning the chat line. Hey, Amy, and feel free to ask your questions. We will ask Dr. Dean as we go along. Take it away, Dr. Dean.
Oh, thank you, Ginny. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. So let's get going. Slide 3. What am I saying on slide 3? Keep it simple, keep it cellular. Those who know me know that I work at things from the cellular level. So when we think about what happens in endocrinology, it is just so complex, so intimidating. And in med school, we were pretty much told, send people to a specialist if you suspect any sort of endocrine problem. So they never really gave us a true picture of what was going on. Both medical doctors and naturopathic doctors wait for the thyroid to tank before they do anything. And whereas what I do and what I'll tell you throughout is that in a cellular solution, you want the 9 minerals that are required to make thyroid hormones, and you want to clear up toxins that block receptors. In the next slide, we talk about the major thyroid conditions, Hashimoto's and Graves'. Turns out they're both autoimmune diseases. There's inflammation in Hashimoto's. There's hypermetabolism in Graves' disease, where the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, pushes and pushes and pushes the thyroid to make more hormones. They're both high in women. They both have nodules, thyroid nodules. In Hashimoto's, they produce little hormones. In Graves' disease, they produce a lot of hormone. And they both lead to burnout of the thyroid. The foods that are aggravating Hashimoto's are a little different than Graves' disease. And all roads in these thyroid diseases lead to hypothyroidism, including when people have their thyroid removed, usually for cancer and sometimes for nodules. And the next slide, I talk about resetting your thyroid, because thyroid disease actually means total body meltdown. Magnesium deficiency and mineral deficiencies and yeast overgrowth are the main causes of total body meltdown. Turns out thyroid disease, same causes. And total body meltdown, when I first kind of coined that term, I thought it was a little bit, you know, kind of sarcastic. I thought I was going too far, but seriously, most people really who are in total body meltdown, they relate to that terminology because that's how they feel. And the next slide, the thyroid, yeah, basically, a lot of people know this, but if you're feeling your neck, sometimes you can feel a swelling of that thyroid as the pituitary is pushing the thyroid to work harder. If it doesn't have the building blocks, it can swell. And the question of why more women get thyroid disease is because every pregnancy depletes the thyroid. And in the next slide, what am I going to tell you about there? Let's see. Why the epidemic? It's because of mineral deficiencies. It's because yeast toxins block thyroid hormone receptors. And this is where I bring in the yeast overgrowth, the chlorine, fluorine, bromine blocking iodine receptors, where I bring in the 80,000 environmental chemicals that block and damage not just the thyroid, but they especially target the thyroid when they include things that block the iodine receptors. It's like a double whammy. There are drugs that block and damage our cells, prescription drugs. The food allergies can affect the thyroid cells, and also adrenal weakness, perimenopause work into the picture. Now, it makes it sound complicated, but in fact, if you look at mineral deficiencies and kind of toxins blocking, then it kind of simplifies it. I guess simple isn't the best word to use because people seem to complexify it. And in the next slide, let me show you how the complexity can occur. Right, the adrenals, when they get overwhelmed, we have to look at them as well. Now, this slide, I'm jumping into the sort of therapeutics of the way I work on the adrenals, because I want you to see when we go over our formulas later on how they kind of match what we do for the thyroid. For supporting the adrenals, we're talking about our Restructure meal replacement protein powder. We're talking about B vitamins that support the adrenals, vitamin C in whole C reset and restructure support the adrenals. There are very high amounts of vitamin C in the adrenal glands. And our Remite, which is our big thyroid support, contains minerals for the adrenals as well as the thyroid. And Remag supports 80% of known metabolic functions. So it's extremely important for anything in the body that's running on low. You need the Remag to get the fuel for the body. And in the next slide, yes, we did a thyroid survey because we wanted to know, do people really want more information about the thyroid? Do they really want thyroid support? And yes, people who came to this thyroid survey or thyroid quiz, maybe they thought, oh, maybe I have something wrong with my thyroid. 2,500 people were surveyed. It's probably up to 3,000 now. 80% of people scored higher, very high, associating their symptoms of weight gain, hair loss, cold hands and feet, puffiness, digestive constipation issues, sexual dysfunction, and new body aches. Look at the numbers, high 50s right up to low 80s. In the next slide, we're looking at the medical naturopathic approach. So what did I say at the top? Both medicine and medical doctors and naturopathic doctors wait for the thyroid to fail. So they miss the opportunity to support the thyroid cells. They do a lot of testing and they find problems because we are talking about total body meltdown. And then they both rely on thyroid hormone replacement. Allopathic goes to the synthetics, naturopathic goes to the natural thyroid. And in the next slide, what I did here when I was writing the book, Total Body Reset for the Thyroid, I went into the recent books. Dr. Isabella Wentz, she wrote a book called Hashimoto's Thyroiditis. And she described how she was diagnosed for Hashimoto's. And what I read was her years of chronic stress and hypersensitivity and insomnia as escalating magnesium and mineral deficiencies, her chronic fatigue and gut symptoms as yeast overgrowth. And she also had mitral valve prolapse, reflux, and anxiety, and that was magnesium deficiency. So for me, if she had known about magnesium and yeast, she could have identified her symptoms long before she finally developed total body meltdown and was diagnosed with her by her thyroid tests to have Hashimoto's. So as I say on the right here, waiting for what they could treat instead of addressing mineral deficiency and yeast overgrowth. In the next slide, this is about the Graves' disease and Dr. Amy Myers. She had the hyperthyroid condition with escalating stress, terrible insomnia, muscle weakness, and weight loss. When she finally developed a tremor and went yet again to her doctors, she was finally diagnosed with Graves' disease. And she was so far gone that they had to give her a drug that caused toxic hepatitis. And she had to undergo a thyroid ablation with radiation to stop her thyroid from producing all these hormones. Now, let's just bounce to the next slide. But Ginny, would you like to stop here for a minute and answer some questions?
We are doing well with questions, Carolyn. So far, everybody's so busy trying to figure out how to get their browser to work that we haven't picked up a lot of questions on the topic. So we will keep going.
Okay. And of course, everybody, you'll hear the replay. Yeah. Apologies about sound. So in this slide, Total Body Reset for your thyroid, that's the free ebook that you'll be able to get. Well, Brian will be putting it in the box when you. I forget what's the box that Brian will put it in, Ginny. I'm floundering here. Where will people be able to click on this?
That's okay. He will put it on the. Yeah, they'll get it on the replay with the slide deck, the copy of the
yes.
Yes, they'll get it then.
Okay, so here I am summarizing the total body meltdown that will lead to your thyroid being under functioning or over functioning. Um, we know it's difficult to treat with hormone replacement uh, because you're missing the minerals that are required for hormone production. They're not treating yeast overgrowth when you just take hormone replacement. And even if you've had surgery removing your thyroid, tissue usually remains and it does respond. And also, we know that supporting the thyroid with what we're talking about, the remite minerals, for example, those minerals are required in hundreds and hundreds of other metabolic processes in the body. And in the next slide, we will look at um, the magnesium connection. Now, this is really big. This is something you've never heard before. Again, when I was doing the thyroid book, and then when I began to focus on this webinar, I began looking at other aspects of why thyroid hormone replacement doesn't really cover everybody. I mean, a lot of people listening now, they'll say, yeah, I'm on Synthroid or levothyroid or whatever, and I'm still not feeling that I'm getting rid of my symptoms. So what I saw one day was calcitonin drugs being promoted to treat migraine. So I wondered what's going on there because calcitonin is produced in and by the thyroid, and it controls the amount of calcium in the body. And what do uh, our customers who know me say when I talk about calcium? When something needs to control calcium, it means there's a lack of magnesium in the body. Magnesium is what controls the amount of calcium in the body. So if you've got decreased calcitonin, it causes an increase in calcium, and calcium depletion occurs in hypothyroidism. So in hypothyroidism, you get an increase in calcium, which pushes your magnesium out of your body at an accelerated rate. And this cycle results in magnesium deficiency symptoms, which are going to be misdiagnosed as hypothyroid symptoms. So to me, this is huge. It really finally explains why hormones alone won't work if you're not also taking sufficient magnesium, but it has to be magnesium that's absorbed well and goes into the cells and pushes out the calcium. Okay, and then in the next slide, just a little more on this calcitonin business. I probably said all the words. Calcitonin has not been studied for the relief of hypothyroid symptoms. And why is that? Yeah, I don't know why. They just have overlooked it, and they have overlooked it because they don't look at nutrients. They don't look at, well, if someone has a lot of calcium, what will we do? They don't look at magnesium as the treatment. They're looking for, calcium channel blockers, which are drugs they use for the heart. They're studying calcification. They have calcium scans of the heart again to look for calcification, and what they offer these patients is statin drugs to try to prevent heart problems. They do not look at magnesium, but that's a whole other topic: heart and calcium. So what I'm saying is the persistent symptoms of hypothyroidism will continue despite adequate treatment with thyroid hormones if you don't include magnesium. And of course, the other minerals are important for making your own thyroid hormones. So the similar symptoms: thyroid to magnesium deficiency, thyroid symptoms, fatigue, muscle pain, weight gain, mood changes, they're all magnesium deficiency symptoms. And of course, the additional mineral deficiency symptoms will occur for each of the eight thyroid hormone promoting minerals. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about something else you will not hear from your doctors about the total biology of the and for the thyroid. The thyroid is responsible for metabolism, and it can either go slow or go fast. So in the next slide, just a simple kind of pendulum here where you actually your own brain can turn up or turn down your thyroid. And I've seen this with you know, patients and then telephone clients and now my customers. I've seen how people who want to spend more time with a dying parent, for example, will slow down their thyroid and it will become hypo. And it doesn't make, it doesn't really make sense to us intellectually, but the body is trying so hard to fix a problem, solve a conflict, create space for a person. So our brain will slow down our metabolism to take more, allow us to spend more time with the dying parent. But if there's something you want to be finished with faster, like a job or a project or a relationship, you will speed things up. And so you will have hyperthyroidism symptoms. Sounds a bit bizarre, but sometimes, at a certain point when people have chronic diseases, they realize that there's something that they're creating or they're in control of. And when you get there, when you realize, oh my gosh, maybe the pain in my neck is my relationship or my job. So anyway, let's go on to the next slide where we just go over what I've been talking about. Getting a good diet, avoiding the sugar, yeast, drugs, gluten, and chlorine, detoxify, and Jenny will be going into our formulas, but we detox with Realign. We have yeast detox with our Flora Revive and Pico Silver. We deal with infection and inflammation, which can affect the thyroid with Pico Silver and Remag. We have nutrient building blocks with our magnesium. Tyrosine is an amino acid that's one of the building blocks of the structure of the thyroid hormones. That's a vitamin C, an aspect of vitamin C, but it has to be a whole food C, a whole food complex C, and our multiple mineral, which is Remite. For people who gain weight with hypothyroidism, we look at our Restructure, meal replacement, and protein balance. And for the total biology that I mentioned, we do refer to our friend, Dr. David Holt. He's a medical doctor at turnpointhealth.com. And in the next slide, we'll be starting you a little more on diet, leaky gut triggers. Right. A lot of people say, well, with the thyroid, as Dr. Isabella Wentz said, that thyroid relates to gut problems, et cetera, et cetera. It's not the thyroid that's causing the gut problems, it's yeast overgrowth. And then these other factors come into play, the gluten and the heavy proteins in dairy. People start getting diagnosed with SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They don't talk about yeast overgrowth enough at all. Antibiotics affect the gut, produce more yeast, as do steroids, the birth control, and stress. So if you're looking at leaky gut, you do have to look at yeast overgrowth. And then both the Hashimoto's and the Graves being called autoimmune disorders, that's triggered by the leaky gut. where the yeast toxins are absorbed into the bloodstream, and these yeast toxins cross-react with thyroid tissue and block thyroid hormone receptors. So, um, if your thyroid hormone receptors are blocked, then your thyroid hormones aren't going to be working properly. So we have to unblock them. We do have to detoxify. We do have to do yeast management. I try to make it simple with Flora Revive and our Pico Silver. Jenny will go into that in more detail. I try to make it simple with our Realign, which supports glutathione production and supports all the liver detoxification pathways as well. And this last bit of the slide, additional gluten damage. If you are gluten sensitive, diagnosed celiac disease, then yes, that does destroy the intestinal absorption, causes systemic inflammation. But what's amazing about our minerals is that even if your intestinal lining is very damaged, where practitioners, naturopaths and nutritionists will say to you, well, you're just not absorbing anything. When there's no point in taking anything until we, da da da. And they'll start their detox programs or whatever. But what we know with our minerals, because they are stabilized ions of minerals, they will be totally absorbed right, from the time they hit your mouth. They're being absorbed in your mouth, in your esophagus, in your stomach, in your upper intestine. They are not affected by intestinal lining that is damaged. So that's why people start healing as soon as they start taking the minerals, because they are getting to the cells. And the next slide, we're coming to a slide with just my last toxin slide, yeast overgrowth caused by high blood sugar, birth control pill, antibiotics, cortisone medications. I mentioned that already. And Ginny is going to be going into our formulas. I've alluded to them throughout, but let's go into supporting the natural health of your thyroid. So, Ginny, did you want questions now before you go into that, or
Yes, I
what?
think so, 'cause we have so many. The minute they knew they could ask questions, we're just got tons of them. So let's do some of these questions, okay, Carolyn?
Okay.
All right. So, one of the first and most common questions that have been asked by several people is, I read a few years ago, if you've been on Thyroid for many years, you can't replace and or discontinue this. Is that correct?
According to our customers, it is not correct, because many people have gently weaned off their thyroid medication. So what happens with our customers? They report to us that as they're taking their Remite and Remag, etc., their thyroid hormones start becoming elevated. Their TSH levels fall, so their endocrinologist is often the first person who says, "Oh, look, your thyroid is doing much better. We should wean you back on your thyroid medication." Or in my case, when I first started taking Remite, and I was already on Remag, I I started feeling my hands and feet warm up, and I started getting a little bit hyper. So I just, and I should have weaned off, but I didn't listen to my own advice. I just stopped my 60 milligrams of Armour Thyroid. So it's because doctors don't have any way of supporting natural thyroid activity that they will say, wow, this is a lifelong project for you to keep on this medication.
Okay, very good. Um, People want to know again if they require the same kind of nutritional support if they've had a total thyroidectomy.
Um, I did mention there will be some thyroid tissue still in the body, and the fact that they had a thyroid issue perhaps means that they were low on their minerals. We know I say 80% of people are low on their magnesium. They need that. They're low on their selenium and their chromium and copper. So we're supporting all the cells in the body, not just the thyroid. So these minerals are important. And we have had people who said that they had their thyroid removed, and then their thyroid hormones start going up on their own. We're not saying that's going to happen with everyone, but these minerals are necessary for all your cells.
Okay, very good. We've had several questions asked about saturation. How do we know that we're getting saturated? I've been taking Remag and Remide. I'm curious about how to know if I'm getting enough. When I started taking these, I had a lot of upset skin, an indication of the yeast being pushed out of my cells. Another one was saying that they're concerned about taking another too much. And another person was talking about how would they know how long it's going to take for their symptoms to improve.
Right. Okay, saturation. Mainly we're thinking about mag with saturation because if you have, quote, too much magnesium, you will get the laxative effect. Even with our Remag, which we say is non-laxative for the most part, if you're saturated, then your body doesn't need as much. I always give my example. I needed 4 teaspoons of Remag for a year and a half before I began to feel the laxative effect. I mean, there are more details I could tell you, but my symptoms were all gone. I could skip a couple of doses and even skip a day of Remag, and my symptoms didn't come back. And if I took more than a teaspoon of Remag, I would get the laxative effect. The same is happens today. If I take a teaspoon and a half of Remag, I get a little bit of soft stools. So I know I'm saturated. Now, this is not the people who, when they start off, and someone said they were detoxing, they had skin rashes. You can have the laxative effect with detox as well. So magnesium is really a safe thing to saturate with. With the other minerals, I make sure people are only taking a teaspoon and a half a day, sometimes 2 teaspoons. If you're taking 4 teaspoons of Remag, I say you want 2 teaspoons of Remite. So we're just doing the RDA of iodine. We're doing sometimes below the RDA of the other minerals. So you're never going to get too much. I have very low dose copper because people say copper is toxic, and a lot of people have built up copper because of copper pipes or copper IUDs, copper pesticides. So I'm very careful about copper, and I have zinc to balance the copper. I don't know if that answers the question. Everybody's different. If a person has concerns, we have a dozen people on customer service that can answer your queries.
Okay, very good. Carolyn Berry says, I've been on thyroid hormone since I was 13 and I'm now 68. I have severe hair loss, AFib, puffy eyes, digestive issues, cold hands, and vitiligo. My TSH is always normal. It's so frustrating because I have so many of these symptoms. I'm wondering, is it too late for me to get any help? I have osteoporosis. Should I take Recalcia? I take 3/4 of a teaspoon daily, but I'm worried that this may be bad for my heart.
Well, it's a matter of, I would say with the AFib, it's a matter of magnesium and potassium. Personally, I'd really look at the magnesium, potassium symptoms first, make sure you were saturated with those, and then work and also be taking the Remite. But there's probably those mineral deficiencies going on. There could be yeast overgrowth as well that's blocking the thyroid from letting the Remite do the work. I mean, it seems complex, but we just use all the same nutrients for every situation because we're working on cells. But we may change how you start the program or what you increase. So that's always where you get in touch with customer service, and if they can't answer the question, then it's bumped up to me, and I help people sort through. But it's never too late. Your body's meant to be in some sort of perfection. We have the DNA that wants to be perfect. It just needs the building blocks and to clear things out of the way. So you can have a new body from brain down to your toes every 7 years. And for organs like the intestines, you can have new cells within days. So never give up, and you be in touch with us for customer service, and we'll help sort things out with you.
Okay, these are two more very common questions that I've seen come through the chat line today, Dr. Dean, and thank you again for taking time to answer these questions. Again, the replay will be made available to everybody through the email tomorrow morning. One of the questions is, my TSH and free T4 are always within range, but I have hair loss, sleep disorder, sun sensitivity, anxiety, and every morning I wake up with heavy feet. Several people have reported something similar where their thyroid tests are normal, but they have all the symptoms of Hashimoto's, including heart palpitations. So what
Hmm.
do you say when the thyroid tests are normal, but they still have all the signs of this?
Well, thyroid testing is usually done every couple of months. And what can happen in, you know, kind of the way I talked about foods and drugs and chlorine and bromine blocking thyroid receptors, blocking iodine, etc. You can actually go through hyper and hypo symptoms on a weekly basis. And I'm thinking that this sun sensitivity, these people may be low in vitamin D, so you have to look at your vitamin D levels as well. Um, but yeah, it's going to be uh, alternating hyper hypo symptoms, which drives everybody crazy, including doctors, because they can't sort it out. They don't have a needle stuck in you 24 hours a day to find out when you go up and down. They only get a reading every few months. So if you understand that, then we look at, okay, what do we deal with first? I would look at yeast overgrowth. If is there something that constantly on a day-to-day basis is putting toxins in the bloodstream that are going to the thyroid and blocking things? I mean, that's where I would start, because my under where I mentioned from the beginning, it's mineral deficiencies and yeast overgrowth.
Very
Okay.
good. Very
Hmm.
good. Thank you. Okay, another common question, and it's very unfortunate that this is a common question. Age 5, age 7, age 12, age 15-year-old children being tested with thyroid issues and being put on synthyroid or desiccated thyroid hormones, wondering if these children are going to be able to get back to normal. Will they live perpetually on this medication? Is there any result or opportunity for children?
I think so. I mean, what I said earlier, the thyroid is dynamic. It is, as long as eh, yeah, the thyroid is dynamic. The cells are there. They're waiting for the minerals. They kind of go into, let's say, hibernation, because you're being given drugs, but they can and will wake up. I don't know. We haven't really talked about this, but I'm thinking of Pico Silver. If you look at my Pico Silver book at our book website, drcarolyndeanlive.com, silver in the form we make it, that stabilized ion, will stimulate stem cell production. So it will stimulate naive, newborn stem cells, which then go out into the body and go to organs and areas where they're needed. So if the thyroid is in hibernation, you put in Remag and Remite minerals and sort of poke the thyroid to start functioning again. Those stem cells may very well um, put themselves to work to make new thyroid cells. I mean, I'm just saying that those words from what I know and just my common sense approach to things. So I think we can create
Okay.
new cells.
Okay. Sounds good.
Lost you, Jenny.
Okay. Am I here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Would you recommend? Okay. Would you recommend bentonite clay taken internally to support remineralization as you use Remag and Remite?
No, no, I wouldn't. We don't know what's in bentonite clay. It's not FDA tested. It's not analyzed. No,
Very
no.
good. Okay. A lot of people are talking about having, not necessarily from our products, just in general, struggling with chronic diarrhea or laxative. They can't tell if they're having a health problem or they're taking too many minerals. All these things about chronic diarrhea. What is your general take on that, Carolyn?
I think it's detox. I think it's irritable bowel. I think syndrome. I think it's yeast overgrowth. I think when people get on our what is it, Flora Revive, the gentle antifungal and soil-based probiotic, I think that really helps get get their gut flora back in balance. And we talk about that with people with the diarrhea, and we also talk about using psyllium seed as a bulk substance that helps pull liquids to the psyllium and bulk up the stool. Um, I talk about I'm on intermittent fasting, so I don't eat until 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So I will do a tablespoon of fine psyllium seed powder every, mid morning to bulk my stool. So, and we have FAQs on the diarrhea question, and I think for the most part, Jenny, people are taken care of. I mean, there could be a parasite that a person has. I know we had Jackie on the radio show on this past Monday. What date was that? So because people can be listening to this at any time. July 19th radio show, Jackie in the last half hour talked about her chronic health problems and chronic gut problems from parasites from traveling all over the world. And, the minerals and the Flora Revive were what scooped her out of the total body meltdown.
Okay, very good. We've only got about 11 minutes left in the webinar today. We're going to try to stop within the hour. And so I want to remind everybody, if you have questions that are on this webinar that are not being answered right now, you can email support, SUPPORT at RnaReset.com. Questions answered. Also, we are going to go on and talk a little bit about the products that Dr. Dean has recommended. One of the questions that's come up repeatedly again today is about yeast overgrowth, how to diagnose it, and how to look at that situation. So Dr. Dean has comprehensive books on yeast overgrowth. Okay, very good. So let's, and Melody Rose is going to put those yeast links to the yeast overgrowth books in the chat line here. Okay, so can we go on to the next slide, Brian?
Lost you, Ginny.
The first thing that Dr. Dean always recommends is the hydration with the sea salted water. And so the water follows the minerals into the cells where they work together for the optimal metabolism. And also proper cellular hydration lessens edema. It seems counterintuitive that you would actually use salt and water to get rid of the bloating in your feet, in your hands, in your wrists, in your arms, and your legs, but it's true. And so you're going to want to follow the hydration with sea salted water protocol. And that is to use half of your body weight in pounds in ounces of water. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you drink 50 ounces of water. If you drink 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water, and you're going to add a quarter teaspoon of sea salt, Celtic sea salt, or Himalayan salt to every quart of water you drink. So that is the basis. You've got to have proper hydration in order to start supplementing with minerals, or you're going to get dehydrated and have problems. We don't want that. The next slide is going to begin to talk about Dr. Dean's landmark formula, the ReMag, excuse me, liquid magnesium. Many people understand the value and the benefit of ReMag. As a matter of fact, one of our listeners today said, I know you're not talking about the thyroid, but I just have to tell you that after years of anxiety, I have been getting so much relief by just even using 1/4 teaspoon of ReMag. I'm so thankful. Thank you, Dr. Dean. That is such an incredible and common testimonial that we have. Thank you so much for sharing that. ReMag does support 1,000 enzyme systems in the body, and it also assists in temperature regulation, hormone balance, food metabolism, insulin production, and blood sugar balance. It is an absolute essential foundational formula for your body. In the next slide, we're going to talk about the question to so many people have asked today. What are the 9 minerals that the thyroid needs? What are those 9 minerals? And so those 9 minerals are in ReMite, and those are the ones that are associated with the hormone production. And they also have the minerals that support adrenal function and sex hormone production, which have to be balanced along with the thyroid. Dr. Dean calls that a 3-legged stool. And in the next slide, you'll see specifically those 9 minerals are iodine, selenium, zinc, molybdenum, copper, chromium, manganese, and magnesium. And these minerals, my gosh, golly, you guys know, you've heard about zinc this last year, you know about selenium, you understand what magnesium does, you know how manganese is so important to DNA. RNA production. Copper is so important to mitochondria. Boron is essential for bone health and brain health. And of course, iodine is required by every single cell in the body. It's not just the thyroid. These minerals do so much more than just support the thyroid. And that's how you know you're in natural health, because you're getting minerals throughout the body. It's not just about the thyroid. So Dr. Dean has posted her ReMite and Recalciate Invisible Minerals Part 2 book. It's available at drcarolyndeanlive.com, and you should definitely get a copy of this book and learn about the tremendous value of all these minerals, and you're certainly not going to win a live without them. And the great thing about these minerals, every single one of Dr. Dean's mineral formulas can all be taken together. So you can take ReMag and ReMite and Pico Silver and Pico Zinc and Pico Potassium, all of them in the same glass, all at the same time. Not a problem. They do not compete with one another. In the next slide, what we talk about are some of the other essential formulas for the thyroid, including Realign, which is your detox formula. Very important. The methionine, which is a precursor to glutathione, the taurine with sulfur for liver sulfation, and all the B vitamins in natural forms that will donate methyl groups for detox. also for digesting food, blood sugar balance, balancing those hormones, mental health, and regulating gene expression. Very, very important. And then after realign, we also have Pico Silver, and Dr. Dean's talked about that quite a bit today. And the fun thing about Pico Silver stimulating those stem cell productions, that it is an antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. It does not build up in the tissues, which is also wonderful. And many of us who work with Dr. Dean and our families have been taking Pico Silver daily for years, with no ill effect, only great benefit. In the next slide, you'll see us talk about the whole C reset. So important, so important. Thyroid support and adrenal support. And I just can't say enough about whole C reset in terms of this adrenal support. You just, the power of having a completely whole vitamin C um, is a building block of the thyroid hormones. It supports the adrenal glands. It protects from oxidative damage. And it also is necessary because the body does not make vitamin C. So you've got to get it through food or supplementation. So this is one of the very best in the whole wide world. And the evidence of that is how many people report the successful testimonials of seeing a major change in their circulation, in their response to bruising, in their response to their adrenal glands when they take this. The next slide, we talk about that wonderful Flora Revive. Flora Revive is our digestive product that Dr. Dean created specifically for people with yeast overgrowth. It's got an antifungal to it, a prebiotic, a probiotic, and it also is catalyzed by the RNA reset powder. It's fantastic. And Carolyn is saying, not Carolyn Dean, but Carolyn Marie is saying, I love the vitamin C reset powder also, as well as the capsules. Thank you, Carolyn. Yes, they're absolutely fantastic. Dale is asking, do I need to take a multivitamin? And Dr. Dean's response to that is usually a flat no. You can get your nutrients from your food and you supplement your vitamins and minerals according to the things that Dr. Dean has formulated that are very important, that they have to be from foods or whole foods, such as the vitamin C and the whole C reset.
Well, let me just jump in, Jenny. What we ended up doing when we brought on all the immune defense boosting nutrients is we cover every vitamin and mineral with our formulas. So if you're taking all our formulas, you have everything in proper amounts, rather than, most of these vitamin and mineral products, they have a little pinch of this and that, and you're just buying the words. And most of the ingredients are synthetic in the multiple vitamin minerals as well. So that's my answer.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Carolyn. So one of the things, and then the next slide, we talk about the RNA Reset Drops, which is an individual experience that affects everybody in a unique way. They are a proprietary formula of Dr. Dean. She has been developing the formula for over 10 years. It has been out in the public with great success, very unique. And what we talk about is that it is almost, in a certain sense, an energy product. It is a somewhat homeopathic in the sense that each generation builds upon itself, and it allows you to achieve a detached state of bliss so that you don't really get too much in your mind about what's bothering you in your body. It's just a way to help the body achieve the next level of health and well-being. And the next product we talk about is the Restructure. And in the Restructure, it is a balanced protein, fat, and carb meal replacement. It has 11 grams of protein. It is the perfect meal for yeast overgrowth. And even though there's just a teeny weeny pinch of whey in it? And that's a question that's come up over and over on the chat line today. I knew I was going to answer this question. There's just a little tiny, because it's pea, rice, and whey protein in a 3-way compound. It does not have any casein, and 0.625 milligram, that's 0.625 milligram of lactose. So not irritating. People who do have digestive issues with milk have a very good time with Restructure. It's just not an issue. Hormone building requires fats for the body. So you've got to build that hormone. You're rebuilding your thyroid. You're rebuilding your sex hormones. You're rebuilding that. And you want to have those healthy fats in your body. What you will want to know next is that as you think about what you want to take as a basis for how you're going to restore your thyroid, one of the things that Dr. Dean has put together today is a special offer for you that focuses on the Remite and also on the Whole C Reset. This is the 9 minerals to support the thyroid. It is going to replace the vitamin C that's been depleted from stress, support the adrenal function, and promote healthy hormone levels, and it will fortify your natural stress response against damage and deficiency. This bundle she's put together for this webinar comes with over $20 discount. So the combined price for this product is over a $20 discount. It's on our website. You will be directed there at the end of this webinar, and you'll be able to order it for yourself today if you'd like to have that. And when you receive it, you'll get the instructions in it about how to start to use it, how to start adding it to your water, and how to take the capsules 2 times a day and start to expect that recovery. And of course, individual recovery is all based on all kinds of factors. So we can't say you're going to take this and have this experience. We can just say we know these products work based on the success that people have it with over 100,000 customers served through the RNA Reset brand. We know they work. The other thing that Dr. Dean has provided for you today as a recommendation is the Remag and the D3K2 bundle, and that is always affordably priced at a 15% discount on our website. And that has the D3K2, which we did not talk about earlier, is something that you're going to want to consider. Research shows that people with low thyroid function are 3 times more likely to be deficient in vitamin D. Of course they are. We saw that all last year, vitamin D deficiency and elevated TSH levels, indicating lower thyroid hormones occur with those who do not supplement with vitamin D. So look, you can't not have vitamin D. It is a proxy for the sun, and you want to have that sunlight careening through your body. And you've got to have Remag and the other minerals to energize your cells. And you have to have the vitamin C because your body doesn't make it. You're not going to get it internally. It's not something that you can create out of thin air. You have to supplement with vitamin C or get it a lot from foods. And so what we want to recommend are these 2 offers to you: the Remite and vitamin C, and the Remag and the D3K2. Let me see if there are any final questions. Carolyn, what would your closing comments be?
Sorry we missed the first 7 minutes. We could have gotten a lot more done, but Karen's asking, is the K2 potassium? No, it's vitamin K2 along with D3, because when you take vitamin D, you pull more calcium in, and vitamin K2 and magnesium direct extra calcium to the bones and teeth. But yes, we could go on like this all day answering questions, but just so you know, and my final comment is I have 22 complimentary ebooks on drcarolyndeanlive.com. Customer service is always available to answer questions. We have a live 2-hour radio show on a cheat. Where's our radio show on Mondays, Ginny? How do people get there?
They get there through Dream Vision 7 Radio, or just Google Dr. Carolyn Dean live on YouTube. We're live on YouTube and
Mm.
Dream Vision 7 Radio. And that's a very good question. Let's just close with that because I'm sure other people ask it. How does this affect thyroid medications, Carolyn? People are always concerned about taking nutrients and thyroid medications together.
Right. I mean, there's some talk about don't take your calcium, I think it is, or yeah, don't take stuff with your thyroid. And we look at our formulas like they're food. So whatever you do with food, you take it. We never have to tell people to stop medications if they're taking our products. In fact, we say stay on your medications, take our products as your health improves, your thyroid levels improve, or your thyroid symptoms improve. You work with your doctor to wean off your medication. So that happens with blood pressure medications, any other medications. So keep taking your medications. We're just getting people to get the nutrients that we should be getting from food, but we're not.
And one of the things about the Remag and the Remite, you'll notice, and this is for people's awareness, is magnesium is essential to make ATP. ATP is essential to boost mitochondrial performance, and mitochondria are the ones who are going to help with the efficiency of the cell in order to metabolize drugs. So we always think that the improved nutrition of any physical body is going to help with any kind of medication that person's been prescribed. We see it as a win-win, absolutely, completely across the board.
Yes, we do. So thank you, everybody. It's been exactly an hour. So I think we're ready to go back to our lives and take this information, take it to heart. It's heartfelt from Ginny and me and all our staff that we want people to feel better.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Love you.